Sure. So oftentimes parallel reality splits are going to complement what you would consider to be high energy, high attention, high momentum collective events. So, for example, you have the idea of political elections, where very clearly you can see on the collective level, there's a type of fork in the road. One choice will lead you very clearly in one direction, another choice will lead you very clearly in another. And massive amounts of people are investing in both outcomes, in both pathways. So there's a great deal of energy here. In the reality where one of those political candidates in an election is selected, those who invested their energy into that candidate then shift to a timeline where that candidate is in power. They will likely still experience in their reality versions of the political opposition that were unsuccessful in the political election. They did not win, but nevertheless, they are still present and they are the losers. In that splitting moment, all of the people that voted for the other side that did not win in the first example, they shift to a reality where the opposition, their political candidate, has won, and the reverse happens for them. So these types of very big collective events will usually represent the major splittings that take place. And now this is on a personal level. Keep in mind, you can also create timeline shifts, timeline splits for yourself in your personal life. And this comes from ultimately making choices that are so energetically different than the kinds of choices you, linearly speaking, have been making, that when you make these new choices that are so different, you have, in a sense, no choice but to shift to an entirely new personality construct. You have no choice but to become an entirely new version of yourself on a completely different timeline. Things might look similar, but nevertheless, when you create these kinds of powerful changes in yourself and your behavior is greatly changing, your thoughts are changing, your energy is changing, you're no longer that previous person. You're no longer on that old timeline. So, oftentimes, you will make these shifts, you will make these timeline jumps without really recognizing you have done so. Now, we have mentioned so far terrestrial phenomena. You have personal events that you can create, and you have collective terrestrial Earth-based events that your society creates. Both of these can lead to timeline splits, but keep in mind you also have what you would consider to be extraterrestrial phenomenon that encourages these types of splitting effects and transformational effects and shifting effects. And this has to do with specifically the alignment of the planets within your solar system. When they are in particular alignments, they can stimulate one's consciousness in a manner where these types of shifts and where these types of changes become increasingly more and more and more probable. So on many of your eclipses that have happened since 2020, timeline shifts have been a part of this. On some of your most powerful planetary alignments from 2020 till now, these have represented timeline shifts. Extraterrestrial contact, extraterrestrial sightings, experiences, because the energy is so different when it's introduced, this oftentimes will create timeline shifts. So as you can see, there are many mechanisms at play that can give rise to such a phenomenon, but the core mechanism is simply the following: introducing an energy that is so different that the embodiment of that energy cannot equal the previous reality. It cannot equal the previous timeline. It's so different. It now must anchor in to an alternate timeline, to an alternate reality that is capable of truly complementing and resonating with the energies of these changes.